the nation's commercial capital. This is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reported tonight.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, the President reorganizes his cabinet to take care of positions vacated by ministers who resigned. Inspector General of Police orders audit of armories in all police formations across the country. Some indigents of the northeast welcome ceasefire agreement but frown on alleged violation by Boko Haram. And gunmen who fired several shots at the Canadian War Memorial before running into the nation's parliament in Ottawa has been killed. And on business news, Minister of Trade and Investment says Nigeria spent $3.3 billion to import steel materials. Fear the figure may rise.
And on sports news tonight, Nigeria's Super Falcons secure passage to the final of the African Women's Championship with a revenge victory over South Africa.
And Gloria Umezeke from Abuja, Senate considers bill to end dichotomy between graduates of polytechnics and the university. There is no room for a vacuum in government, as this may lead to lapses, and that's what the President seems to be avoiding today as he readjusts his cabinet following the exit of some ministers who are seeking elective positions in their states. One of the key adjustments is that of the Ministry of Information, which is now to be supervised by Mr. Nuruddin Mohammed, who also doubles as Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. Also, Minister of Defense, Lieutenant General Aliyu Gusau, will now take full charge of the ministry. And the Minister of Special Duties, Taminu Turaki, will act as Supervising Minister of Labour and Productivity. Our State House correspondent Chukwu Maunekuse reports.
It is the first time President Jonathan and his cabinet members are meeting after the exit of 7 of their colleagues for other political ambitions. The first thing was to fill the vacant positions with the former Minister of State for Foreign Affairs too, Dr. Nuruddin Mohammed, now performing his first function as the Minister overseeing the Information Ministry.
The Honourable Minister of Defence will continue to function and oversee the functions of the Minister of State Defense, Mr. Ambassador Musili Obanikoro, who has resigned. Professor Mrs. Viola Onwolori, Minister of State 1 for Foreign Affairs, has now been moved to Ministry of Education as Substantive Minister of State. Dr. Haliru Alassane will now oversee the functions of the Minister of Health, Professor Onyobuchi Chukwu, who has also resigned. Dr. Olusegun Aganga, the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, will oversee the functions of Mr. Otom, who has resigned as Minister of State, Industry, Trade and Investment. Dr. Nuruddin Mohammed, that's myself, Minister of State Information, Minister of State Foreign Affairs, will oversee the functions of Mr. Laura Maku as Minister of Information and National Orientation. Mr. Kabiru Turaki San, Honorable Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, will oversee the Ministry of Labour, sequel to the resignation of Mr. Emeka Ogu. Niger Delta, Dr. Stephen Oru, Honorable Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, will continue to oversee the functions of the Minister of State Niger Delta, who had also resigned.
He gave a rundown of the 6 contract award for the week. One of them is the contract for the flight simulator for the School of Aviation Zaria at the cost of $21 million. The Minister of Aviation said it will be located at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, for a purpose.
When you have graduated as a pilot and you start flying the 737, you need to get recurrency training every 6 months, which currently they go abroad to do. So this is being done by the airlines. So to make sure that the simulator is in a place where the airlines can use it maximally, it is being placed in Lagos.
3 contracts were approved in the road sector. The Oron-Calabar Phase 1 along the East-West Road, which will cost 165 billion naira. The Calabar-Ajaso Road in the sum of 106 million naira. The Mbise Ring Road in Owerri, Imo State, which will cost 106 million naira. The Minister of Niger Delta spoke on the importance of this phase of the East-West Road.
And the advantage of the extension is that Oron to Calabar, as at now, takes about 3 hours. But with the new road project, that section, when completed, will now take 30 minutes.
Other approvals were in the power sector, where the Ministry of Power is to purchase a building at Owerri for the zonal office for the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission in the sum of 131 million naira. While the Ministry of Trade and Investment got approval for the appointment of transaction advisor for the rehabilitation of independent building for National Trade and International Business Center projects in Lagos in the sum of 150 million naira. Chukuma Onwekuse, Channels Television News.
A thorough audit of the nation's armories has been ordered by the new Inspector General of Police, Sulaiman Abba. Now, part of the reason for this, according to police headquarters, is to be able to prevent arms from going into the wrong hands, especially terrorists. According to the force spokesman and Commissioner of Police, Mr. Emmanuel Ojukwu, another reason for this directive is to keep a check on weapons movement in the country. The exercise, which has already begun, will cover all police commands, formations, stations and units across the country. The exercise will also enable the force to review the current state of arms and ammunition in its stocks at the various armories. The security now residents of Jimeta in Adamawa State say they have mixed feelings about ongoing talks between the federal government and members of the Boko Haram sect. Some of them who spoke with Channels Television say while they are anxious to see peace return to the state, they are not confident that the agreement will hold. Our correspondent Lanre Lasisi reports that residents refer to attacks in some parts of the country as an indication of a ceasefire breach.
Life for residents of Jimeta in Adamawa State appears to be going on as usual. But the state has had its fair share of the insecurity that has taken its toll on the northeastern part of Nigeria. News that the federal government has reached a truce with the insurgents should be received with joy. It is being received with mixed emotions.
And we received the news with great expectations. We're happy about it. However, the problem we have is on air. The report we are receiving is that the government has signed a ceasefire with the insurgents. But reports reaching us from these areas, particularly Michika, is that fighting is still ongoing.
We have our own reservations with respect to the sincerity on the part of the government. This ceasefire is supposed to inculcate all the parties. In other words, the states that are directly affected, the terrorist organization known as Boko Haram, as well as the government. Yes. They should all be involved in the ceasefire agreement, and they should give, at the same time, they should issue the same statement without conflicting one another.
The town also has its fair share of internally displaced persons. They also react to the development cautiously.
We that ran away from Michika, Madagali and Goza, we welcome the idea. But if there is any contract, and that contract has been breached by one side, who is to be blamed? Now this contract is entered into by the federal government and the terrorists. But the terrorists have breached the contract because up till today, they are still killing some people in my area from Michika.
It's a very welcome idea if the terrorists are going to be sincere. Because when you talk about ceasefire, you are talking about laying down their arms. And from all indications, it's like they're not going to be sincere. Because even yesterday, there was attack at Shafa, Michika, and some part of Biu local government area.
The residents here say they're hopeful that the ceasefire agreement between the federal government and the insurgents will be a reality. They say what is most important for them is to have a situation where peace returns to this town where they call home. From Jamaica in Adamawa State, Lanre Lasisi for Channels Television News.
Now, one of the things that would sustain the federal government Boko Haram ceasefire agreement would be an effective disarmament policy. Other displaced people from Borno State agree that there's a need to sustain the ceasefire agreement, but also add that the agreement should have included disarmament. Our correspondent Amaka Ukafo reports.
On Friday, the 17th of October 2014, the federal government announced a ceasefire deal with the Boko Haram sect. While some elders in the region see the deal as a breath of fresh air, some are skeptical of the truce. Their skepticism is hinged on the non-inclusion of the relevant players from the region in the negotiation process and the fact that the announcement for the ceasefire was made by the federal government alone.
We've been praying for peace to prevail. And this, the announcement by the federal government last week was, and is a welcome development.
They are insurgents. They are not recognized people. They are not recognized country. So if they say, okay, we surrender, this is our arms, and this is what we are going to do, and this is our condition. It's okay, but nothing like that. It's only a ceasefire. As even we are fighting between Cameroon and Nigeria, we are not fighting between countries. We are fighting with terrorists.
The real Boko Haram we know, who are killing us, who are burning our towns and villages, I'm sure are not the Boko Haram they negotiated with. They negotiated with Boko Harams who are staying in cities, Boko Haram who are staying overseas, the millionaire Boko Harams. And maybe they negotiated with the sponsors of Boko Haram, not the Boko Haram who are killing our people. Because right now, they have continued to kill our people.
For some of the displaced persons at the internally displaced persons camp in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, the ceasefire deal can only yield the desired result if the federal government begin a process of disarming the insurgents to forestall future attacks.
I am in support of the peace deal, but only if the insurgents will be disarmed. It will be a Herculean task to stay with armed, bloodthirsty terrorists. Government should involve us in the arms disarmament process, as we know their hideouts. There is no need for any reconciliation with the terrorist group. They should be dispossessed of their arms.
While hoping the ceasefire agreement will achieve the desired objectives, the elders of the area believe that the federal government need to assist those displaced by the insurgency and ensure that villages and towns earlier captured by the sect are recovered. They also call on the government to make those towns habitable and safe for the people to go back to their normal lives. Amaka Ukafo, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, Senator Ifeanyi Okowa throws hat in the ring, declares a governorship seat in Delta State. That's coming in a moment. To join us again.